Campers, welcome everybody to our first Crossfire session of the summer. Mitzvah Hashem, over the next period of time, we will be addressing questions that you campers have presented to us over the past couple of days. And we have the pleasure and privilege of having two very, very special Rabbanim who are known around the world, who have taken from their time, from their shlichus, to answer your questions. And Mitzvah Hashem, hopefully by the end of this program, most, if not all of your questions will have been answered. Before we begin, I just want to make a quick dedication that today this event is dedicated to L'schus Refuah Shlema, someone very special. Rabbi Tzvi ben Sarah Freda should have a Refuah Shlema Kreva. So that's first and foremost. L'schus of the learning of Torah, and Mitzvah Hashem, he will have a complete Refuah Shlema. Before we begin and present our first question, I first want to introduce our panelists. I'm going to start with someone who's quite close to us. We're in Gan Israel, Florida, and we have the pleasure of having the Rebbe Shliach to North Miami Beach, Rav of Chabad of North Miami Beach, Rabbi Yossi Marlow. Thank you very much for joining us. Happens today, makes it even more special. Rabbi Marlow's son, Zalman, is with us here in the crowd, so it makes it even more personal. And we go all the way up to the Upper East Coast, where we have the privilege of having Rabbi Levi Garelik. Rabbi Garelik is the Rav of the Shul across street from the UN in Europe, as well as the Dean of SichasAcademy.com. We thank them both for taking the time. And in Mitzvah Hashem, over the course of the next time, we will hopefully try our best to have all of your questions answered. We're going to start with Rabbi Garelik. Again, all of these questions are questions that you have given to us, and hopefully over the next period of time, we will try our best to answer them. Rabbi Garelik, what does one do if they are in a remote place without tefillin? Should they still daven? What should they do to substitute wearing tefillin? It makes sense because a lot of our boys are either starting to put on tefillin or will be putting on tefillin, so tefillin is certainly on their mind. Rabbi Garelik, it's all yours.
Okay. Davening and tefillin are two separate mitzvahs, and they're totally unrelated to each other. We happen to do them both together because, for practical reasons, our Chachamim, they saw that people in the morning they have to daven, and we also have a mitzvah every day to put on tefillin. So therefore, we do it together. However, if someone didn't daven, has nothing to do with tefillin. If someone only put on tefillin, has nothing to do with davening. As you see, that many of you, I'm sure, have, or all of you, have gone on mivtzaim, and you see that you stop a person, you put on tefillin with him, and that's it. You don't daven with him, because davening and tefillin are two separate things. So, if someone is stuck without tefillin, he should definitely daven. There's no question. He'll do it like all our grandparents in Russia when they went to jail and they took away the tefillin. they still davened. But, so it's without tefillin. Now, if by mistake someone forgot his tefillin or whatever it may be, there are a few letters from the Rebbe to different Bachrim that, unfortunately, this happened. And the Rebbe said that as a tikkun, what they should do is they should learn the halachas of tefillin, as they are in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch or in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, besides for two simanim, Lamed Beis and Lamed Vav, because those two simanim are basically for the sofrim, how to write the tefillin. So that you don't need to do. But if somebody, if it happens that he missed to put on tefillin, so he should learn the halachas of tefillin, and that would be a tikkun for him.
Thank you very, very much. We'll move on to Rabbi Marlow. Rabbi Marlow, why do we need to wear woolen tzitzis? Why can't we wear cotton tzitzis?
Okay, so actually in Shulchan Aruch, according to the Mechaber, there isn't an obligation only when it comes to either a beged, a garment made out of linen, pishtim, or a garment made out of wool. All other begodim are not b'chuyovim in tzitzis min ha'Torah, only midrabanon. Says the Ramah. The Ramah says that some say that all of them are obligated min ha'Torah. Based on this, the Alter Rebbe brings a Deya, brings a Ram Rutenborg, whatever it is, that it's best that a person should not at all put on other begodim, only wool in order to be yoitze all of the opinions. In other words, Leirei Shemayim is yoitze only when he wears woolen tzitzis. And based on that, we're mahadir, we're makbid dafke to wear woolen tzitzis. Parenthetically, there are other known very great literature gedolim such as the Gra and others who wore cotton tzitzis. But by us, especially in Chabad and Chassidim in general, are mahadir to wear woolen tzitzis because of this reason.
Thank you very much. Rabbi Garelik, is it true that one is not allowed to cut their beard? And if so, why?
Okay. I mean, unfortunately, there are people who do cut their beard, but the reason why those who don't cut is, let me start from a fact, and then we'll go back to the halacha or the source. The fact is that, I'll give you two facts, actually. When I was a little boy growing up in Italy, I grew up in Italy. Baruch Hashem, I was born and raised on Shlichus. And when I was 8, 9 years old, I was in Camp Gan Israel, like you boys. And we had some children that came from Switzerland to our camp. On visiting day came the Melamed of these boys. He was a Chassidish Yid, and actually he was a Holocaust survivor. And his feet, imagine, his feet were still frozen. He always had to get shots because the Nazis made him walk, when he was a little boy, made him walk barefoot on the snow, on the ice. So Pashut, his whole flesh got messed up. Okay. So he told us that when he was a little boy, the Nazis took his father and they made a fire in the street, the middle of the street. They made a fire and they said, either you cut your beard or we're going to throw you into the fire. And he said, I will never touch my beard. And the Nazis took him and threw him into the fire. So when I was a little boy and I heard the story, it, of course, made a big impression. And I heard from Reb Mendel Futterfass, who was a big chassid, that one time he met Reb Osher Sasonkin, who was also another big chassid. And they both sat in jail in Russia for who knows how many years. And one thing that they told each other in Russia is, we're going to go Mesiras Nefesh for our beard. So this is just two actual facts. Now, in the Torah, there's a pasuk that says, that we're not supposed to cut the 5 corners of what's now the beard. So, of course, there are some that say it means this, it means that, but the Tzemach Tzedek brings that it's another Isur, which is Layil Bash, etc., without going into too many details. So because of all of this, and the Tzemach Tzedek makes it so clear that it's a Isur min HaTorah, so therefore Chassidim don't touch their beard.
Thank you.
Okay, could I add?
Yes,
Could I add to what Rabbi Garelik answered beautifully? Also, Al Pi Kabbalah, it's connected to Yud Gimel, Tikkun Dikna, Yud Gimel Midas Arachimim. If one has a beard, one draws down many, many wonderful hashpois from the Baal Harachamim, from the Master of Mercy, from the Eibush himself, and therefore there's a lot of bracha. In addition to the Nigle, by the Rambam, that it's Avodah Zarah, and the Tzemach Tzedek, that it's not supposed to cross-dress, what Rabbi Garelik said.
Thank you, Rabbi Marlow. While we are with you, another question: why are tefillin, Chabad tefillin, so big?
Oh, so Rabbi Garelik just mentioned before that Siman Lamed Beis is what you don't have to learn because that's more for Sofrim. So that same Siman, the Alter Rebbe discusses the size of tefillin, and he quotes the Goinim, and the Goinim say that it's best to have etzbaim al etzbaim 2 by 2, and there's a question 2 by 2 fingers, and each finger is like 2 centimeters, so it's 4 centimeters. And the question is, how do you measure it with the titura, with the bottom of the tefillin, or just the top of the tefillin itself? So that's why we do 5 by 5 centimeters, which basically ends up being close to 2 by 2 inches, because it's the proper amount of room needed to fit everything in the most muhaddidik way.
Thank you. Rabbi Garelik, I'm going to move on to a bit of a different topic. We have some questions here regarding tefillah. So there's 2 questions from 2 different boys. I'm going to put them together because it's possible that they both have the same answer. One question was, am I allowed to daven in a room where there is a non-kosher animal, for example, a cat or a dog. And someone else asked, am I able to daven in the room if the door to the bathroom is opened?
The answer is that in front of an animal which is not kosher in the same room, yeah, it's not a problem. You could daven. As far as the bathroom is concerned, there are some poskim that say that if there is a door, even though the door is open, but because it's considered a separate room, and also today's bathrooms are not mamish like the bathrooms in the time of the Gemara, in time of Shulchan Aruch. I know I also couldn't relate to it. When I was a bacher in yeshiva, and I was on shlichus as a bacher in New Haven, they found a Jew who, as a boy, he learned in the yeshiva in Poland, in Lubavitch yeshiva in Poland, and then, of course, because of the war and everything, so he came to the yeshiva, and I used to learn with him a blood Gemara every day. And the Gemara was talking about a bathroom. The bathrooms those days wasn't the way we have them today. A bathroom those days was behind the house. There was like a hut. And then they used to make in the whatever. It's very hard to understand. Today people wouldn't understand what we're talking about. Today you go and you flush, and the place is perfectly clean. So I asked him, how did you guys do it? And when it rained, how did you go to the... And you know what he told me? Levi, now that I think back, I also don't know how we did it. So the bathrooms those days was totally different. Today, usually bathrooms are clean and there's no tzoya. So therefore, there are some poskim that say that even if the door is open, you're still allowed to daven if you're in another room. Is that lechatchila? The answer is no. The door should be closed. There should be some kind of a mechitza. But if you're stuck, you could just look in the other direction and you could finish davening.
Could I add something?
Yes, certainly.
Now, regarding the Balichai, regarding animals, this is an interesting answer for the Rebbe. Someone asked the Rebbe regarding a seeing eye.
I was about to say that.
That walks with a dog. Someone asked the Rebbe if there's an issue with it, and the Rebbe brings a tshuva from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, actually. And Rabbi Moshe over there is matir. He says it's permissible, based on the Yerushalmi, that they used to bring the Chachamim and the Talmidim used to bring donkeys into the shul, which means that it's not a contradiction to daven and have an animal. Whether the animal is right in front of you or not, whether it blocks, you're not supposed to daven right in front of an animal is one thing. But the fact that you're allowed to have a dog or a donkey within close proximity is al pi halacha not a problem. And interesting over there brings that Abayi's stepmother raised him to have a lamb walk with him wherever he went. And Abayi didn't exactly go to the Central Park. He went to the Beis Medrash, and the lamb went with him. So he davened next to a lamb. It's not an issue.
Shkoyach. Rabbi Marlow, once we're with you, a hot topic here in camp. I got a few questions on this topic. Can I make a tradition soup on Shabbos?
Okay, so let's condense it because you could go on like so to condense it, to shorten it. In general, there's the concept of klidishin and klisheni. Assuming that most people know what it is, the first keli off of the fire, and then when you pour it into another keli, into another vessel, it's called the klisheni. Most foods are not cooked in a klisheni, in a second vessel. There are some exceptions known as kali habishul, if they are the types of foods which get cooked very, very easily. The Alter Rebbe, for instance, says, the Alter Rebbe gives that chiddush that liquids do not cook in klisheni, so it's not a problem with liquids. Spices also, everyone agrees, do not cook in a klisheni. However, there are certain things known as kali habishul. They cook. Even, for instance, the Mishnah says, kuliyas hasponim, salty fish. All you have to do is rinse them with warm water. They already cook. Certain things get cooked very easily. Some poskim suggest that, for instance, tradition soup, the noodles get cooked very easily, even in a second, even in a third keli, and they may fall in the category of a problem of cooking and also makibapatish, finishing them on Shabbos, and therefore they suggest you do not do that on Shabbos. Hello?
Not my fault. Okay. Rabbi Garelik, I'm going to jump around here. I'm going to go to a different topic. Okay. Why should I believe in Hashem if I never saw him?
The problem is because you didn't see him. Well, I'm sure that you have everybody sees that there's a camp here, and nobody knows who built this camp. I can guarantee you, there's not a single person in camp that knows who built this camp. But you do know that there is actually somebody that built it, and you know for sure it didn't come down from the sky by itself, just like that. Or even any painting is like that. A painting doesn't happen just by itself. Somebody must do it. Anything in the world that makes sense, that works, somebody must have put it together. And therefore, the Eibishter, just because someone doesn't see him, doesn't mean that the Eibishter is not there. Okay? Especially when our grandparents did see by Matan Torah the Shechina, and they told it to their children to their children, until our generation. So therefore, we know that there are our great-grandparents that did see him. So therefore, and when we look at the world, a world like this couldn't happen by itself. And therefore, even if we don't see the Eibishter, we do know that he is there. Just like you see the house that you're sitting in or the food that's prepared, you don't know exactly who, what, when, but you definitely know that someone made it.
Rabbi Marlow, are computer games healthy for a Jew? The room is buzzing, so this is a hot topic as well.
I want to ask the same question. Are computer games healthy for a non-Jew? So
Go. Yes,
okay,
we're all ears.
So what comes to mind is the Rebbe spoke more than once, but certainly one time comes to mind. When it comes to nittel, how do you spend time by nittel? You can't learn Torah, so what do? So one of the constructive fashions of spending time by nittel is to play a game of chess. What's the advantage of playing chess? It sharpens your mind. One of the reasons why it's advantageous is it sharpens your mind. Like this, if your mind is sharpened, then you're able to learn Torah better. You're spending your time while advancing your mental capabilities. So that would be a way to use a computer game if the game, let's say, was chess. And I know at least one person in the audience who likes playing chess. So I guess there are people who play computer games known as chess, and it sharpens the mind. The other ones, I don't necessarily think it sharpens the mind. It probably would depend on the specific game. I don't know why Dafka computer games, any game, certain games tend to sharpen one's mind. The Rebbe Rashab and Nittel would at least watch a game being played and comment what move to make, if the move was correct, if the move wasn't. So there is something very significant when it comes to even certain games and sharpening the mind and seeing strategy, etc., and so on. Then there are certain games that Pashut are, you're wasting your time and you become addicted to it, and it becomes the main aspect of your life at the expense of other productive aspects. So on the one hand, to rest and to take a break and to pace yourself properly, it may be acceptable. But on the other hand, there are certain risks, and it's not necessarily always healthy. And you should ask your LOM, local Orthodox mashpia, if it's good for you in particular or not.
Thank you, Rabbi Marlow. Rabbi Garelik, there's a couple of questions here which I think could be answered in one answer, so I'm going to present to you all three. Number one is, can a Jew go to a baseball game? Question number two is, am I allowed to follow sports? Wasn't sports a form of Avodah Zarah back in the day? And the question three was, what is considered Jewish music?
I'll start with the third, and then we'll go back to the first two. Jewish music, that's a very, very fine line, because what happens if there's a song which is made on a pasuk? Does that become already Jewish music? In Chassidus, it explains that music is not just something. Music is the pen of the neshama. Believe it or not, you go to some supermarkets and you hear in the background there is music, or when you go on an airplane there is music. It's not stam music. This is music that affects the person in the supermarket to buy more stuff, believe it or not, because music has an unbelievable effect on a person. It goes straight into his brain and it conditions him in certain ways. There were certain people in operas that were able to make some music that some of the people would faint just from listening to this music. So people don't realize how strong music affects them. Because of that, Yidden, and especially Chassidish Yidden, are very, very careful with what they listen to. By Chassidim, they never said zing anigen, they sing a song. By Chassidim, they used to say by Fabrengen, zog anigen, say a song, because a song talks. So you have to be very, very careful. Believe it or not, in some of the mosdes here, they have to make a rule. What is considered Jewish music? So the first thing is, it has to be from a live person who's still alive and wears a full beard. If he wears a full beard, so he's already in the gather of more of a Yiras Shamayim, and B'meila his music is already considered much better. If he doesn't have a beard, no, then you have to start going into, as I said, the fine line, what is correct, what is not correct, etc. But in my personal opinion, if the guy has a beard, that means he's Yiras Shamayim, you could listen to his music. And the same thing goes with sports. Sports, you have to be very careful what you're going to do with the sport. First of all, there's a question about going to a stadium. It's not so simple about going to a stadium. And really, it has to be done on a, on a personal basis, as Rabbi Marlow said before, LOM. There are some boys who need it more. I was a big soccer fan when I was growing up in Italy. In Italy, soccer is a religion. But I never went to see a stadium, Favaz, because it says in Rashi, by Rus, that the Yidden don't go to stadiums and the Goyim do. Now comes the whole question, is a stadium of sports also the same thing or not? So I think it's more on an individual basis, but it could be also a big waste of time. So therefore, I'd rather not give a direct answer of yes or no to it, but you could definitely discuss it with your mashpia.
Thank you very, very, very much.
Lahoyer,
Yes.
today's Hayom Yoim Chav Beis Tammuz mentions 3 points: a Chassidische Wort and a Chassidische Anhage, a Chassidische Wort, aphorism, a Chassidische behavior, and then it goes to a Chassidische Niggin. What a Chassidische Niggin does, it strengthens one's hope and it brings simcha, and the entire household has a very positive, illuminated atmosphere. So a Chassidische Niggin, like what Rabbi Garelik started to explain, a Chassidische Niggin has a tremendous koyach and a tremendous chus.
Rabbi Marlow, if someone is ahead in a class is learning, should he go on the side and learn, or stay with his class even though he knows all the material?
There's an interesting Gemara that gives you the Seder al-Limud, what happened when Moshe Rabbeinu taught the Torah. First, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Seder the Mishnah with Moshe Rabbeinu was he first taught. He heard it from the Eibishter. Then Aaron comes in, and Moshe Rabbeinu teaches it to Aaron. And then Aaron sits to the right of Moshe. And then Aaron's sons come inside, and they hear it. And then they finish, and they sit one at the right of Moshe and one at the left of Aaron. And then the Zakanim come in, and then they hear it. And then afterwards, then the Zakanim, then everyone else comes in. And then Aaron leaves. Moshe Rabbeinu continues to teach it. Aaron leaves. Aaron taught it to his children. And then the children taught it, which means Lamaisa, everyone ended up learning it 4 times. Which means that's Rabbi Levi learns from this, that from here you learn that everyone has to learn and review things 4 times. Incidentally, people are medayik. That's why the top lines of Rashi and Tosfos in every Gemara is 4 lines, because you have to learn everything 4 times. You have to learn it 100 times, but you have to learn it at least 4 times. So when this individual is saying that he already learned it, there are at least 3 more times to go. So I don't see the problem with him sitting and chazening over and he'll learn it even deeper. We also learned Parshas Pinchas last year. We're learning it this year again. Why? Because every time we learn it deeper. We're a year older or a day older, and we have more depth and breadth in understanding.
Shikoyach. Rabbi Garelik. Rabbi Garelik. A couple of boys asked this question. Is the Rebbe Mashiach?
Let me rephrase the question. Let's rephrase the question.
Boys?
Does the Rebbe have all the qualities required for Mashiach? To be Mashiach is not someone who is going to come down from the sky and all of a sudden say, hello, here I am, Mashiach. That's not how it's going to work. Go back in history. Who took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim? Moshe Rabbeinu. Why Moshe Rabbeinu? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was the son of Amram. He was the 7th generation from Avram Avinu, and he was from Shevet Levi. He had all the qualities needed to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. Aaron was a big Navi. He was there also, but he wasn't it. Do you know that Kairach was the Rebbe in Mitzrayim? Moshe Rabbeinu was not in Mitzrayim Bichlal. Kairach was the next one in command because he was in the next family of Levi. Okay? But he didn't have all the qualities to be the Goyal Yisrael. So therefore he couldn't. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rebbe put him to the test, etc. And then he became the Moshe Rabbeinu. Mashiach, not every individual can be Mashiach. The Rambam makes it very, very clear that Mashiach has to have a whole bunch of qualities. First of all, Mashiach has to be an anical of David HaMelech. I'm just going to ask a general question here, Label, if I may. Does anybody here in this camp know whether they are descendants of David HaMelech? Anybody in camp know whether they are descendants of David HaMelech?
You have a couple of hands. You're saying that, you guys are saying that because you know, or you're just saying it? You have a family tree.
Could you ask him what's his family tree from where?
What's your last name is?
No.
Your mother's name is Tachtel? And you have this all the way from the Tachtel family. So he's a Tachtel.
Okay, I don't know exactly. So who is the person between them and David HaMelech? Does he know?
Do you know who the person between you? He doesn't know, but he said at home they have a family tree.
Uh-huh. Okay, I'll give you a simple example right here. For example, I have that quality. So I could start becoming Mashiach, but not yet. Here is our family tree from Adam Arishan, David HaMelech, until us. Okay, here's a clear family tree. So I have the first quality, but that's it. The next quality, that says the Rambam, that this person has to be a inical of David HaMelech and know the whole Torah Shebiksav and the whole Torah Shebal Peh. All these Sforim that you see over here, he has to know by heart. No, I don't have that quality. So I'm not Mashiach. So it has to be someone from David HaMelech. It has to be someone who knows the whole Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh, the whole of it. In other words, you ask him a question anywhere in Torah, and he knows the answer. He has to be someone who's in the forefront of Yiddishkeit, that he makes sure that all the Yidden are going to do Torah mitzvahs. He makes sure that anything that people fight on Yiddishkeit, he is right there in the front. Oh, if you have such a person with all these qualities, he is a perfect candidate for Mashiach. So now, a Jew, what he has to do is, connect the dots. If you have somebody who is a inical of David HaMelech, he knows the whole Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh, and he is one whose agenda is to get all the Yidden to do Torah mitzvahs, and his agenda is to be in the forefront of Yiddishkeit, etc., etc. He has the qualities of being Mashiach. Okay? Now, let's add to this. The fact is, people don't know these facts. Who is the first person that introduced the practical Mashiach into the world? For thousands of years, Yidden were hoping for Mashiach. But who's the one that actually, in actuality, started dealing with Mashiach? The first one is the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov went up Lamaila and he asked Mashiach, when are you coming? And Mashiach answered, Lich sheyafutzu meinusecha chutza. When you'll take Chassidus and spread it into the world, then I'm going to come. So we see that Mashiach is connected to Chassidus. So we're narrowing down the line. Now you have to understand, this is, I have over here an encyclopedia that is very, very detailed, was written over 100 years ago. And it says over there clearly, because of this story, from the Alter Rebbe and on, from that generation, all the groups of the Chassidim, they all said about the Rebbe that if Mashiach comes in our generation, he is the one that fits the bill to be Mashiach. So, and you had this, all the groups. I'll give you an example. One of the greatest Gerer Rebbe. You ever heard of the Gerer Chassidim? Gerer? So his name was Rabbi Yitzchak Meir, the Chidush She'arim. I have the sefer right here. So the Chidush She'arim, his name was Yitzchak Meir, right? His mother name was Chaya Sarah. So the Chassidim said, oh, he is the good candidate for Mashiach. Because Yitzchak Meir is Yud Mem, Yitzchak Meir. Chaya Sarah is the 4 letters of Mashiach. The Sadigerer Chassidim, you know the Sadigerer Chassidim? You ever heard of the Sadigerer Chassidim? Even if you didn't, doesn't matter. When they used to say L'chaim, that our tzaddik should be nisgala in the whole world once and for all. So the concept of Chassidim saying about the Rebbe that is Mashiach, this is something from the time of the Baal Shem Tov. But the Rambam makes it very clear that Mashiach has to have these qualities. So therefore, so the question is the Rebbe Mashiach? You decide. Does the Rebbe have those qualities? Beautiful. Do you have someone else who has those qualities? Adarabbe. I did not find anybody else with those qualities. This is a big story in a nutshell.
Yasher Koyach. We're going to end off with 2 questions, one for Rabbi Marlow, and then the last question I will be presenting to both of our panelists. Rabbi Marlow, also on the topic of Mashiach, one of the boys asked, why should I want Mashiach if I am having a good or great life? Again, for those who didn't hear, why should I want Mashiach if I'm having a good or great life?
Okay. So I'm having a good or great life means what? That I have a lot of money, I have a lot of nasha in the canteen. What does good or great life mean? Or does it mean that I'm going through Shas and Poskim and Nigla and Chassidus and I feel that I'm a Mekusher? What exactly does a great life mean? But without answering that question, thinking that you have a great life, first of all, the Rebbe mentioned many a time that there are some people who are a little apprehensive for Mashiach to come because they're successful in business and they have many investments. And if Mashiach comes, what's going to happen with that? So they should know it says, Kaspom uzahovam itom, that all of the investments are going to go with them. You have nothing to be concerned with. Everything is going along and going to be taken on the next level. In addition, the fact that he says, I have a great life, perhaps could be comparable to, you go to a 3-year-old and you tell him, when you become bar mitzvah, you're not going to have little fire trucks. You're not going to be playing with little soldiers or maybe even with Lego, even though I know people who are 33 playing with Lego. But when you're going to be bar mitzvah, you're not going to be playing with fire trucks. And the 3-year-old starts crying. Who wants to become bar mitzvah? Life is good. I have all the fire trucks I want now. The electronic ones, the ones that I could play on Shabbos during the week. Life is good. But you could understand that this is a 3-year-old's perspective saying that life is good. But when he's 13, he'll understand that a life with a fire truck is far from good, sufficient, and accomplished. So whoever is saying that, why should I want Mashiach? Life is good, perhaps is in a double golus and doesn't really realize the importance and the wonderful qualities that Mashiach will bring upon arrival. There's a person one time came to the Rebbe Rashab and he said, I don't understand. It says that if you don't wash negelvasser, your hands are tomei. There's a certain tumah. I don't wash negelvasser and I don't feel any tumah at all. Said the Rebbe Rashab, Now you see erished how much tumah you have. The fact that you don't feel you have tumah shows on how much tumah you have. So if a person feels that he has a good life, who needs Mashiach, shows on how deep the golus perhaps may be, and how much he really needs Mashiach.
I'll present the final question to both Rabbi Garelik and Rabbi Marlow. I'll start with Rabbi Garelik. The question is, what, in your opinion, is the most important thing for children our age, boys which are 12, turning 13, to know and focus on?
I would say it in continuation to what Rabbi Marlow just said, that they have to realize that they're going now from being a child to become a gadol. That is exactly what you say in the Maimer, that a child cannot put on tefillin. Why can't he put on tefillin? It's a box. It's 2 boxes and with a strap. Why can't you put it on? And the answer is because tefillin represents the concept of moichin, the concept of understanding, the concept of knowledge. A child doesn't yet understand what's important and what's not important. You are going over now from the childhood to adulthood. And therefore, you start with tefillin. And just to give you an example of how, when I was your age, what we did, today, there are many miftzayim. There are 10 miftzayim, 12 miftzayim. When I became bar mitzvah, there was only one mitzvah at that time. Mitzvah tefillin. This was the only mitzvah. So when we became bar mitzvah, what was the difference between a Lubavitcher bacher and another bacher? And that was someone who did not learn in Chassidus or in a Chassidish place. That in other places, comes Friday afternoon, they go to the gym, they go to Facebook. Mashenk and a Lubavitcher bacher, he goes on mitzvah tefillin on Friday. That's what he goes. Why? Because the tefillin is not just for myself. I have to do it also to others. And this is how we get the whole of Kal Yisrael together. So we used to take a hachlata, and I'm sorry for being so blunt. So all of you who are becoming bar mitzvah, the hachlata is that by the 14th birthday, you'll be able to say, I put on tefillin. My tefillin went on at least 1,000 heads.
Rabbi Marlow, it's all yours. Thank you, Rabbi Garelik. Rabbi Marlow.
Children your age, Baruch Hashem, they realize that the sky is the limit. They don't have the Hagbolis. You know, when you get a little older, this is proper to say, this is proper to do. Children your age, they have a special, unbelievable chayas. And they could achieve, the sky is the limit. As long as you believe in yourself, as long as you understand that you're koiches, you have special neshamas, and you have special koiches, and you have the Rebbe's brachas, as the Rebbe's chassidim, you have to focus on trying to accomplish whatever the Rebbe wants from us, and we certainly can. And you know that if you believe in yourself, that if you know you could do it, the sky is the limit. Some of you will have 13 prakim of Tanya learned, 12 prakim of Tanya, or 13 of prakim of Tanya for the bar mitzvah. Some of you will have kama v'kama prakim of Mishnayos, either learned inside or Baal Peh. You have to focus. This is the prime time. These are the best years for learning and for instilling chassidusha and hogis, and realizing how important it is to learn and to connect to the Rebbe and to grow in our Chassidishkeit, in our Yiddishkeit, and to prepare to be bar mitzvah. A bar mitzvah literally means to be people who perform mitzvahs, behidr, because they love to do it, because it's a special opportunity to connect with the Eibishter. And learning the Rebbe's sichos is a special opportunity to connect with the Rebbe and the Rebbe's messages, to know how we should behave, what we're supposed to do. So to learn the regular Shulchan Aruch and the Chassidische Shulchan Aruch, which is Likutei Sichos, And in doing that, in really having that commitment, the sky is the limit, and you'll achieve and accomplish whatever you want, and you'll have a lot of bracha and atzlacha.
Thank you very much. Boys, thank you very much. Rabbi Marlow, thank you very much. We're coming to the end. Thank you very much. We're coming to the end of our program. I want to take the opportunity to thank both Rabbi Garelik, Rabbi Marlow for taking the time. For taking the time, both of their shlichus, of their time, their schedule to fabring with us, because it was more than just answering questions. It was a fabringin. Thank you very much. Maybe should pay you both. The whole minute is a meitav. And obviously the most important thing is everything that we learned, we should instill and make part of our lives. And everything that we're doing is obviously adding those extra bricks, those extra mitzvahs that we're doing to bring Mashiach. Thank you very much. Talmidim, wait here for a moment before I dismiss you all. I'm just going to disconnect the recording and we will move on.
Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim.
Amen. Amen.